MacArthur is a false prophet, denies the blood of Christ, promotes all these false Bible versions, is a hyper-Calvinist, teaches work salvation, and recently, go on YouTube and see it for yourself, recently John MacArthur, the man who denies the blood, one of the most popular preachers in America, okay, he recently stated that if you take the mark of the beast during the tribulation, you can still be saved. He just came, I mean, when is this guy going to stop? Okay, when are people going to stop listening to this guy? He's popular. They love him.
In your Hebrew commentary, you state that we are redeemed, quote, not by his bleeding, but by his dying. Do you still stand by that, and why?
Yeah, we're not saved by his bleeding because it wouldn't have done any good if he just bled. This was a big controversy years ago. Some people who were enemies of me decided to fabricate all kinds of strange things, and we got kicked off 55 radio stations, and all because they said I denied the blood of Christ. Well, look, if Jesus had just bled, nobody would be saved. The wages of sin is not bleeding. The wages of sin is death. And people must understand that it's not the bleeding of Jesus and it's not the blood of Jesus. To speak of the blood of the cross is to simply speak of the efficacious, substitutionary, sacrificial death of Christ. Do I think he had to actually die, actually bleed? No, not to save us, but to fulfill the Old Testament picture. Somebody suggested that I might have thought he could be bludgeoned to death. Well, I suppose if God had decided that's the way he would die, it would be fine. But the pattern and the picture of the shedding of blood was in the whole Old Testament sacrificial system. And as the fulfillment and the final lamb, he fit that model and that pattern. But we are not saved by his blood. There's a weird theology that floats around that people have that turn the blood into a fetish, and they actually believe that, and I've tried to deal with this with some people who accuse me of denying the blood, that somehow God collected all the actual blood of Jesus, collected it all, around the foot of the cross, put it in a bowl and took it to heaven, and it's up in heaven sitting on a mercy seat, and every time somebody's saved, it's dumped out and recollected and then dumped out again and recollected. Of course, this is wacky kind of theology. There's nothing magic in Jesus' blood. Try to think that through, right? There's nothing magic in his blood or his saliva or any other part of the fluids of the human body. I don't need to get too graphic here. What we're talking about is his death. And blood is a euphemistic way to refer to his death, particularly when you realize the blood shed that occurred there. So I'm not saying anything different than Orthodox Christianity has said for its entire history. We are not saved by his bleeding or by his blood as a fluid, but by his